Gunfire at the press dinner, Trump responds, "We will not back down." Trump cancels the meeting, Iran sends a new offer. Just 10 minutes later, HORMUZ blockade pushes U.S. energy exports to record highs. Trump the 11th summit aimed at stabilizing ties. Washington prepares for a phase of managed confrontation. On the evening of April 25th, while Donald Trump was attending the White House Correspondents Association dinner at the Washington Hilton, an armed man attempted to breach the security perimeter. The suspect was intercepted by the United States Secret Service at a checkpoint before reaching the banquet area. One officer was shot, but body armor reportedly saved his life. Trump, Melania Trump, and cabinet members were evacuated safely. Roughly 30 minutes later, Trump returned to the White House and held a press conference, alongside Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and Kash Patel. He said the suspect, carrying multiple weapons, suddenly charged the security post from roughly 50 yards away before being stopped by agents. According to Trump, the ballroom doors had remained sealed, leaving the attacker no chance to enter. Trump praised the Secret Service and Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia for what he described as a fast and professional response. He also said security footage would be posted to Truth Social so the public could review the sequence of events. He added that he had spoken with the wounded officer, who was recovering well and in good spirits. Trump said he had prepared an unusually forceful speech for the evening, but the attack outside the venue forced it to be shelved at the last minute. Even so, the core message remained unmistakable. His administration would not allow violence to disrupt national political life. Trump announced the dinner would be rescheduled within 30 days, on a larger scale and with tighter security. Rather than canceling the event out of fear, the White House aimed to show it remained firmly in control. "I will not let anyone break our social order. We will not cancel events because of this," Trump said. Strategically, such messaging is common after attacks targeting national leaders. Governments seek to restore normalcy quickly and deny adversaries the fear they hope to create. Trump also praised the evening's organizers, describing the event as a celebration of free speech, the Constitution, and bipartisan unity. According to him, the room had a rare atmosphere of harmony before the shooting occurred. Trump confirmed the suspect was taken alive and remains in custody. He described the man as an extremist and dangerous individual, while questioning the motives behind such violence. According to law enforcement officials, the suspect is a man from California who was reportedly staying at the Washington Hilton at the time of the attack. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has launched a full investigation. FBI Director Kash Patel said agents recovered a rifle, a handgun, multiple spent shell casings. He also urged the public to submit information through a tip line, emphasizing that no detail is too small to matter. Todd Blanche added that serious charges are expected and that justice will be pursued swiftly. When asked about the failed assassination attempt in Butler in 2024, Trump said the Secret Service performed far better this time, stopping the suspect before he could reach the main venue. He said the earlier incident had exposed a clear security weakness that should have been covered. Trump also referenced another threat while golfing in Palm Beach in late 2024, saying, "Risk comes with the office." "The presidency is a far more dangerous job than many people think," he said, half-jokingly. Following the incident, Trump renewed his push to build a new ballroom inside the White House complex, with higher security standards than civilian venues such as the Hilton. The post-shooting press conference served not only as a public update, but as a display of crisis control. The message was direct. Government operations continue, security remains intact, and the administration will not retreat under threat. What began as gunfire outside the dinner quickly became a political statement. The Trump administration signaled it would answer violence with tighter security and a more visible public presence, not retreat. The shooting in Washington may have dominated the night's headlines, but earlier in the day, another major development had already unfolded. Trump canceled a planned meeting with Iran, and Tehran reportedly sent a new proposal just 10 minutes later. Even amid domestic turmoil, Washington's foreign policy machine was still moving at full speed. Trump cancels the meeting, Iran sends a new offer. Just 10 minutes later. While many viewed the U.S. decision to cancel planned talks with Iran in Pakistan as a sign of renewed deadlock, what happened next suggests the opposite. According to Donald Trump, only about 10 minutes after he called off the meeting, Iran immediately submitted a new proposal, one he described as much better. That suggests Tehran understands the leverage currently favors Washington. Speaking in Florida on April 25th before boarding Air Force One back to Washington, Trump said Iran's initial document had fallen short of U.S. expectations. However, once the United States withdrew from the planned face-to-face meeting, a revised version was quickly delivered with significantly improved terms. While he did not reveal specifics, Trump reiterated that Washington's core position remains unchanged. Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon. This is a significant signal. It suggests Washington is using coercive diplomacy, maximizing pressure, then compelling the other side to make concessions in order to keep diplomacy alive. When a revised offer appears within minutes, it often reflects concern that the window for negotiation is beginning to close. The decision to cancel the meeting in Pakistan also carried a clear political message. Trump said there was no reason for an American delegation to fly 16 to 18 hours merely to talk for nothing. He also criticized Iran's leadership as divided and chaotic, questioning who actually holds decision-making authority. In his framing, the United States does not need to chase negotiations while holding the stronger hand. In practical terms, the White House appears intent on reversing the traditional diplomatic model. Instead of Washington actively seeking compromise, the burden is being shifted to Tehran to initiate contact, submit proposals, and demonstrate seriousness. This is diplomacy from a position of dominance, where time becomes a weapon. Trump also claimed Iranian officials are now fighting not to be leaders, after the United States had removed 2 levels of leadership. While clearly political rhetoric, the deeper message is unmistakable. Washington believes the power structure inside Tehran is under strain, and that internal fragmentation may prove more effective than direct military pressure. However, canceling the meeting does not necessarily mean war is about to resume. In an interview with Axios, Trump said the United States is not currently considering renewed military action. That suggests Washington still favors a 2-track strategy: maintain hard deterrence through blockade measures and military pressure, while keeping the door open to diplomacy if Iran offers sufficiently meaningful concessions. Events on the ground reflect the same logic. Last week, the United States reportedly extended a ceasefire arrangement with Iran while continuing its naval blockade. According to United States Central Command, American forces have redirected 37 vessels since the blockade began. In short, bombs may be paused for now, but economic strangulation and maritime control continue. Collectively, the US-Iran confrontation has entered a new phase. The central question is no longer whether both sides will sit at the negotiating table, but who will define the terms of that table. And with Iran forced to submit a new proposal just 10 minutes after Washington walked away, the United States appears determined to show that the initiative still rests firmly in its hands. HORMUZ blockade drives U.S. energy exports to record highs. While much of the world's attention remains fixed on missiles, warships, and the risk of escalation with Iran, another strategic consequence is unfolding quietly, but with major significance. The crisis in the Strait of Hormuz is pushing U.S. energy exports to historic highs. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, American exports of crude oil and petroleum products reached nearly 12.9 million barrels per day last week, an all-time record. At the same time, data from Kepler shows U.S. liquefied natural gas exports also surged, hitting a fresh peak in the most recent month. This is a predictable market response when a critical artery comes under threat. When Hormuz, the world's most important oil transit choke point, falls into instability, economies across Asia and Europe are forced to seek replacement supply quickly. At present, the United States is the only country with the production scale, infrastructure, and shipping capacity to fill that gap in the near term. The clearest sign can be seen along the Gulf of Mexico coast. As of April 22nd, more than 60 empty supertankers had arrived in the region awaiting cargo loads, roughly 3 times the level seen before the conflict escalated. That suggests markets do not view this as a short-term spike, but as the beginning of a multi-month rerouting of global energy trade. Put simply, the crisis in the Middle East is redirecting global oil and gas flows toward the United States. The impact is especially visible in Asia. Economies such as Japan remain heavily dependent on Middle Eastern crude. Japan alone is estimated to source nearly 95% of its oil imports from the region. As geopolitical risk rises, diversifying supply becomes a national security priority, not merely a pricing decision. According to the figures cited, U.S. crude and LNG exports to Asia in March and April rose roughly 30% from a year earlier. That is a substantial increase over a very short period, reflecting urgent repositioning by buyers. Washington also appears to have anticipated this scenario. In March, the United States and Japan co-hosted the Indo-Pacific Energy Security Ministerial in Tokyo. There, U.S. companies and Asian investors signed energy agreements reportedly worth $56 billion. The message is clear. Energy is being used not only as a commodity, but as an alliance instrument. Comments by Doug Burgum reinforce that view. He stated that America wants to sell energy to friends and allies so they do not become dependent on sources that could be influenced or controlled by adversaries. Strategically, this reflects a familiar Washington model, converting resource abundance into geopolitical leverage. Europe is moving in the same direction. As governments rebuild gas reserves, many European states have increased LNG purchases from the United States. Some aviation fuel flows once sourced from the Middle East are also shifting toward American supply. That means the HORMUZ crisis is changing not only energy prices, but the customer map of the United States. However, this advantage is not absolute. The Wall Street Journal has noted that many Asian refineries are optimized for heavy, high-sulfur Middle Eastern crude, while most U.S. crude is lighter. Full substitution therefore faces technical and profitability constraints. Even so, during a crisis, supply security often outweighs cost efficiency. When the risk of disruption becomes severe, governments and companies are willing to pay more to avoid shortages. Collectively, the conflict with Iran is creating a major paradox. Tehran may seek to use HORMUZ as a pressure lever against the world, yet the immediate result is higher U.S. energy revenue, greater economic influence, and stronger strategic relevance for Washington. From Texas and Louisiana to Alaska, American ports are directly benefiting from Middle Eastern instability. And if disruption continues, Washington may not only tighten its role in maritime security, but further cement itself as the world's emergency pump station. When HORMUZ narrows, America opens the taps. Trump the 11th summit aimed at stabilizing ties. Washington prepares for a phase of managed confrontation. U.S.-China tensions continue to widen across trade, technology, and supply chains, yet Washington appears to be preparing for a new phase of competition, more intense but more controlled. Speaking on April 24th, Scott Bessent said the objective of upcoming meetings between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping is to stabilize bilateral relations. At first glance, that sounds like standard diplomatic language. Strategically, however, the word stability carries a far deeper meaning. It does not imply détente or reconciliation. It means creating a framework in which two major powers can continue competing without sliding into an uncontrolled crisis. According to Bessent, the two leaders could meet at least 4 times this year, in Beijing, at the White House, at APEC, and at the G20 summit in Florida. That unusually dense schedule suggests Washington is not seeking to sever communication with Beijing, but to preserve high-level channels for managing rivalry. In essence, the United States is shifting toward a model of a predictable rival. China remains the central strategic challenge, but the White House wants competition to unfold within calculable limits. Put simply, Washington accepts long-term confrontation as long as it does not become chaotic. That logic is visible in the economic doctrine Bessent described: de-risking, not decoupling. The United States is not pursuing a full break with the Chinese economy. Trade continues, American firms remain active, and exports of agriculture, energy, and services still flow. At the same time, Washington wants strategic independence in 3 critical sectors: key minerals, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors. This marks a major shift. Rather than trying to dismantle the entire economic relationship with China, an extremely costly path, the United States is attempting to separate only the vital nodes from Beijing's influence. If successful, China may remain a major trading partner while gradually losing leverage in strategic industries. Bessent also emphasized that competition in artificial intelligence will be decisive, reportedly saying that if America loses in AI, the game is over. That is a notable statement because it confirms Washington now sees AI as no less consequential than nuclear power was in the 20th century. For decades, military superiority formed the foundation of U.S. strength. In the next era, however, dominance in algorithms, data, advanced chips, and automation may shape the global balance of power. The fact that AI is now entering the Trump-Xi summit agenda suggests both sides recognize it as the new central battlefield. Meanwhile, tensions continue to rise. As trade disputes intensify, Beijing has used non-tariff measures, such as restrictions on rare earth magnet exports. Washington has responded by tightening controls on data, technology, and student visas. This is a multi-layered economic conflict in which each side targets the structural vulnerabilities of the other. More importantly, Bessent appeared relatively calm about Beijing's retaliation. He argued that the United States still holds multiple pressure tools, from aircraft engines and silicon-based materials to access to higher education. That reflects growing confidence inside Washington that America still retains the advantage in core technologies. His remarks suggest the Trump administration is building a two-track strategy toward China. Maintain high-level dialogue to avoid direct confrontation. Accelerate competition in decisive sectors, such as AI, semiconductors, energy, and supply chains. This is not old-style rapprochement. It is confrontation management in an era of superpower rivalry. If the model succeeds, U.S.-China relations in the coming years may produce fewer dramatic public ruptures, but deeper structural tension beneath the surface. From Beijing to Washington, from tariffs to artificial intelligence, the world's two largest economies appear to be entering a new technological Cold War.